Hello friends, Dale here at Three Generations. Welcome, good to have you here. This morning I'm working in the garden. It's humid as all get out today, so anyhow, but it's beautiful out. Right now I'm working with the pole beans, and I am putting strings off of these wires that I've put in a few of these garden posts, and I have, it's probably a 16 gauge wire running, two of them run across. And then I'm taking some of the baler twine that we have laying around and tying it on here and letting it go down to where the bean can grow right up the side of it. I'll let you watch for a little while, and then I'll probably take you on a little tour of the garden. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see what floats my boat. So anyhow, watch me work. So the primary colors I have in the baler twine right now are orange and blue. So that's what colors I'm putting up here. I put a knot on the end so the twine doesn't come all apart, unravel, and it helps to keep it more hanging straight down. Alrighty, this one next. Alrighty. So, if you notice, I planted these pole beans right up against my weed, whatever you call that, my weed barrier. So I planted these right up against my weed barrier to help, take advantage of that weed barrier. And then when the pole beans started growing up through the ground, I went and I took some of our hay that's laying out here in the pile, and I mulched around it to keep the weeds down. Now eventually, later in the a couple 3 years from now, hopefully I can buy cattle panels, and I'll take and make hoops, trellises to come between the two beds, and that's where I'll grow a lot of my pole beans and things that like to grow up the vining stuff that grows up trellises. So anyhow, and you can see here are some pepper plants. There's like a Chinese bell pepper here, and then jalapeno at that end. And we have a number of tomatoes. I don't know if you can see them here in the foreground that go down the rest of this row here. I'm going to wait on that loud tractor to go by. So then we have other tomatoes that we bought locally here, and then up there's a really nice tomato plants that this morning I took and I tied them up. Oh, it's the road grader is what it is. Okay. Yeah, that's what's making all the noise. They're grading the road. Yep. You see that sign? No, don't look at the sign. They don't have electric down there. You know how I know? It says no outlet. So here are my 3 rows of asparagus that I planted probably about a month ago, and they were roots that hadn't started putting up asparagus sprigs yet. So I planted them under the ground, and I put them down in a trench, and then as they started growing, I would rake ground back over. I think I need to rake one more time, and then I'll be ready to start taking weeds out and putting hay mulch around here to keep the weeds down. Asparagus do best when they don't have a lot of weeds. However, someone told me recently about a book that somebody here in the Shenandoah Valley wrote, or somewhere around here, about harvesting wild asparagus out of the ditches around here. And after hearing about that, I've kind of watched, and I see wild asparagus coming up in ditches different places that have gone to seed. And so apparently asparagus can grow in weeds too, because those would be lots and lots of weed presence there. But anyhow, I like to see it pretty much weed free. I think they'll do a lot better. And I just don't like the weeds. Not all of these asparagus have come up, so I don't know if some of them just won't, but a good many of them are. And I'm pleased with what's coming. It usually takes, you don't harvest any the first year, and then it takes the second year, maybe you harvest a little bit for a few weeks, and then by the third year you should be able to harvest pretty much all you want. So anyhow, there's one row. So here's the tomatoes that I tied up this morning, and you can see in the foreground the pole beans. So these tomatoes are doing really well. I bought them at an auction just over a month ago, about a month ago, and they've done really, really well. And then here's jalapeno peppers. I don't know if I can get an angle where you can see all the peppers that are growing right there. There's a bunch. And then the Chinese bell, I think they're called, start right in here somewhere. I think these are the Chinese bell. And we're back to where I was. So these squash plants, I think I bought a 4-pack at the Waynesboro, it was the, I forget what it's called now, but it's right there on Main Street, I believe. But they were a 4-pack, and each one of the little packs, these are just little packs, had about 4 or so plants. And so they were, you know, I had to kind of separate the roots because they were so packed in. But I planted them, and some of them were a little slow start, but man, when they took off and just grew like crazy. So hopefully that's an indicator that we'll get a lot of squash from them too. At that Waynesboro, almost time to start picking. Garden and lawn, I also got these onion starts, probably about 500 of them. In the last week, the weeds took over. I got to get in here and get that cleaned out too. And I think there's about 500 sets in here. And then here is my 3 sisters. So I have 4 rows of a sweet corn. And when this corn here in these first 4 rows here, when it got to 8-10 inches high, probably last Saturday, I planted beans, the pole beans in around. And you can see right here, I don't know if you can see that, I don't know if the focus, but the beans are just starting to pop up now. So, and once the beans get going good, then I'll plant squash, which could be, you know, it could be squash, it could be melons, you know, any of those kind of viney things, and then they'll grow and they'll cover the ground so that the weeds won't grow. I'll have to do a little weeding first. And now I have 2 more rows here that I put my my hills or whatever, my not popcorn, this is eating corn, sweet corn. So I put 4 more rows like I did there, and I planted those in this last week here. And then as that starts growing, probably about the time that I plant the squash up in those first 4 rows, will be time to plant the squash around these hills of corn. And then here's the strawberry plants that I planted and got mulched. And this end there's 50 everbearing, and then of one kind, another kind of everbearing, and then here And then here, there's June bears. I see they keep popping some blossoms, and I keep picking them off because I don't want energy going into fruit yet. I want it to go into the plants. And then here's a variety of raspberries that I got from Stark's, and looky there. That's the first green I've seen on them. I was starting to think that maybe they weren't any good. So at least there's a little hope. And then, yeah, there's quite a few of those raspberries. And then here's some local. That guy is just way too. These raspberries I bought locally off of a lady that was selling raspberry plants. So these weren't dry roots. These were already sprouted plants, and they're starting to grow pretty nicely. And then this section here is Kendra's garden, and she's got some cilantro and some bee balm and stuff planted in this area, but it started raining and I threw the belt on the tiller, and I should have put the tarp over the tiller before I left. Well, it got all wet, and so this morning when I was going to do more tilling, that was not possible because it won't start. It's too wet. So I put the tarp on it, and we'll see if it doesn't dry out for tomorrow, because I can always till tomorrow. And then here's some more tomato plants that I bought locally. And these tomatoes go right up to where you've seen before, where the peppers are. And then over here, this is kind of exciting. I bought a couple of fig trees, and I planted them here. So I don't know if you can see them, but in this sunny spot where it gets sun almost 24 hours a day, I expect that these will produce a ton of figs. Now the lady I bought them from, she has a north facing garden, and it's shaded a lot of the day. And her neighbor across the street has a south facing garden, and she said that lady gets so many figs that they have to preserve them and do all kinds of things, where the lady I bought them from said she only gets, to eat some fresh, which they really like, but they just don't get near the production because of the sun, location of the sun. So anyhow, thanks for joining me today. You have a blessed day, and in case you're curious, I'll catch you later. This is my hay mulch for the garden. And then, okay, here's my chip pile of fresh wood chips that I'm using to mulch my walkways between my garden areas. So that works well to keep weeds down. Eventually, in the future, I hope to have composted wood chips to do more of a back to Eden style garden, where you actually mulch everything with wood chips, but when they're fresh and raw, they don't work real well. So for now, it's mulching of walkways. Here's my IBC tote, my high-tech watering system, and to refill it, I have to take it over to the equipment barn and fill it up from other IBC totes as we collect water off of the roof, because there's no well yet. We were supposed to have had a well in July last year. This is June. They said later it would be July of this year, but I'm not holding my breath on that one. So anyhow, thanks for watching. Blessings. Bye.